Hello everyone, this is the first lesson of Cameo MagicDraw plugin development. My name is Joel and I will be your host today. Let's start with a quick introduction. I'm a computer engineer. I have a Master of Science degree in fault-tolerant systems. I've worked in different domains including telco, public transportation, as well as maritime. Currently, I'm working for Netlock, which is a certificate authority in Hungary. Here I have different roles. I work as a business analyst, a systems analyst, and also as a systems engineer. We are designing distributed audit software using agile mobile-based systems engineering principles, and for this we are using MagicDraw with a SysML plugin extension. I am responsible for designing the system as well as writing some plugins because I have a computer engineering development background basically. So for this I wrote various small plugins which are helping in our day-to-day operations. I wrote some of the transformations, model validators. I also wrote plenty of importers that can import external data into our single model. So what is exactly a plugin? Well, plugin is something that extends the existing functionality of MagicDraw. This is some kind of code that is compiled, put it in a file structure, and it is loaded by MagicDraw during startup. It is a specific location on the file system, and there is actually a long description how to develop a plugin. Currently, in this lesson, we will try to develop a very single plugin together, so you will be able to follow up that later on. So what kind of capabilities can a plugin provide? Are there any kind of limitations? Well, actually, a plugin can do anything that you can do in a generic programming language. So it can like display a fancy user interface. Imagine you are displaying a dialog with some panels and buttons and tables and canvases, whatever. This is you can do, of course. You can also exchange data with external parties. So you have some kind of system that provides you an API, REST API, SOAP, whatever, and you can interact with this system. You can also write into an Excel file or read up data from an Excel file. You can even implement custom algorithms, so there are really no limits. And besides that, what the generic programming language supports, which in our case it will be Java, you can do everything that is supported by MagicDraw. In order to access MagicDraw from a plugin, there is an API that is provided by MagicDraw. And through this API, you can do all the functions that you normally do when you are designing a model. For example, you can query a model based on name, type, whatever. You can add, modify, or even remove model elements and relations. You can create new diagrams, you can modify a diagram, you can delete a diagram, you can add presentation elements to a diagram, you can ask MagicDraw to reorganize the elements which are displayed on a diagram. So basically whatever you can do in MagicDraw, you can do it from a plugin, from a code. This is something that is really great. So what do you need for this? Imagine you decide, okay, I need a plugin. I want to develop a plugin. But how can I do? How can I start? What do I need for this? For the current session, you will need, of course, the MagicDraw, but you can use the demo version. Demo version is really great. After a free registration, you can download it. It has all the functionalities that a full version has, but it has a little bit of limitation. That means you can use up to 25 items from each type. But for writing a plugin, this is more than enough. You will also need a free Java development toolkit. If you are using the latest version of MagicDraw or Cameo, you need the 11 version. If you are using some other MagicDraw as we use, you need JDK 8. But you can download it. You also need Maven, which is a package management system and also a build system, which can be freely downloaded using, for example, under Windows with Chocolate, or in other operation systems. You can just simply Google like how to install Maven on macOS or Linux and execute the described steps. You will also need an editor. There are plenty of editors, including IntelliJ's. IDEA, the community edition is great. You can use NetBeans, Visual Studio, or Eclipse, but whatever you fancy, this is really up to you. We also need Git for version controlling, which can be also installed either with this single command on Windows or after Googling how to install Git on Linux or macOS. Really, it is quite simple. So let's start. So I created a sample project on GitHub, which you can download with this single command. So let's try to download it. I created a folder under C, Home, Demonstrations. But I will open up a terminal, like here. And I will just simply copy paste this command. Copy and paste. As you can see, that all the code, all the lesson is downloaded. So I will just go to this directory, and it contains certain files, and we will talk about it a little bit later. You can see it also in Total Commander. We will talk about this structure later. So let's just start with the end of this whole discussion. So I can execute a command with Maven. So you just write mvn package, and this will actually compile all the code and create the structure that we need. So I will just execute this command. And as you can see, build successful, and a zip file is created here. You see, in the target directory. So if I go into the target directory, I see this is the zip file that is actually created. So if we want to install this plugin, we need to go into the MagicDraw folder and into the plugins directory. So this is where the plugins are stored. And just open the zip file and actually just extract it here. So as you can see, here's a new folder containing 2 files. We will talk about it a little bit later. We just start really with the demonstration. So when we start Camel, it will load all the plugins, and hopefully it will display us something. We just need to wait a little bit until it starts. Still waiting. And here we are. So the plugin is loaded, and it is actually displaying a message to us, which is like hello world from lesson 1. Okay, it is not a big deal. Still, we can see that we can really create a very simple plugin, a very simple hello world. Okay, so let's just press this O button and go into the details. Yeah, and MagicDraw is just started. So actually, what is this? How this plugin is structured? Why are so many files? So let me open up simply just an IDEA. which is an editor, and let's just go through every part of this thing. So what we have here is basically just in the main folder and resources and the plugin. So this one is the interesting. So if we go back here in the plugins and here, okay, so we talked about that when you write some code and you compile a code and kind of create a folder structure. So the folder structure looks like this way. So you will see an XML file, which is a textual file called plugin.xml, and you will see one or multiple jar files. Jar file is basically just a zip file which contains all the code compiled. So this is how Java works basically. The plugin XML describes the actual plugin, and MagicDraw, when it starts, it's searching for those plugin.xml files in the plugins folder, and when it finds it, loads it, and does something based on what is described here. So each plugin should have an ID, name, version, provider name, and also a class. So this is the class that is stored in this lesson file, in this jar file. You see this in this library, and this is the file that MagicDraw will try to load. So this is a standard naming format in Java, and every dot is actually a folder. So if we go inside the jar file, then you will see that HU and model driven and Cameo and lesson 1 plugin. So here you don't need to write .class. It is the name of the class. As you can see, so class, this is the class. And this is how MagicDraw basically loads the plugin. So it goes to every runtime, it loads those jar files, those zipped code and everything, loads into the memory, and finds the corresponding class. This is the main class, and it will create an instance from this class and executes the methods in a proper order. And so this is how a plugin is loaded. So let's see the source code. Is it complicated or is it easy? So let's open it up. As you can see, this is really not complicated. This is basically a standard Java class which needs to extend this plugin class, which is provided by MagicDraw. If I move my mouse over it, you can see that open API all. That means this is an open API provided by MagicDraw, which is not restricted, so you can use it. And because it is an abstract class, it has some methods which needs to be overwritten. And the only thing that we are interested in is the init. So whenever the plugin is loaded, this init method is called. And in this init method, we can write our own code. And here we can do basically whatever we need. Currently, what we're doing is we get an instance of the running application, we get the log, and we show a message. And this is the message that we have seen previously. So what else do we have here? So we have the plugin XML. So this is what we have seen before. We have an assembly file. Assembly file is not a language, it's actually also another XML file which describes how to build this zip file from the jar file and as well as the plugin.xml. Normally you don't have to touch it like at all during development, but this is helping us create all the structure, so we don't need to do this by hand. Okay, and what we are still missing is how to make a build. So when we are developing in Java, we are using either Maven or Gradle to create a build from all the source codes we have and also all the resources that we have. So we are using this kind of build system, which is also a build is described in an XML file. So this is a standard Maven pom.xml file, which is describing that, okay, I have some source code, I have some resources, and how the system should build result from it. So it has a group ID and artifact ID, and the packaging type is jar, of course. It has a name, and it has various properties. And the ones we are interested is the Java compiler version, that, as we talked about previously, should be 11, and the MagicDraw home, which is an environment variable. So because everyone has its own MagicDraw, some different location on his local computer, then I decided to use an environment variable. Using Windows, you can change it or create an environment variable in the system properties, and you can select environment variables. And here you can create a variable. I created like Cameo root, and this is pointing to my local Cameo installation. So just press like simply new and fill those two fields. And that's it. And you can press OK, and then everything will run fine. So we have another part of this description is a build part. Build part is actually how to build. It's using some kind of plugins, extensions, even to Maven. And this will use this assembly that we talked about. So with package, it will create actually all the zip file, including everything that we need. There is a third part, which is also interesting, are the dependencies. So what we did here is we defined external dependencies. So in order to access the API provided by MagicDraw, you need to find the corresponding packages. And those packages are stored inside the MagicDraw. So if we go like into the MagicDraw folder structure, you see a folder like lib, so this one. And those are the libraries that you can use in your code, basically. But we need to reference them. So in order to like access the basic API, we need to reference this md underline api.jar. And this is how we do. So we reference it in the local MagicDraw installation. This is not very nice. I mean, from development point of view, it is not very nice, but it actually works. So here we shall see something like an MD API. You see, it is there. And so this is how we reference it. It might happen that if you have a newer or an older installation, then there is some version mismatch. And the editor will tell you that, okay, I cannot see this file. In this case, you need to find that particular file, and probably there is some version difference, like something like here. So you need to just modify it according to your local settings. And then you will be able to build your project. There is one additional thing I'd like to talk about is the logging. So if you go into the help menu in Cameo about and in environment, and you see here is a log file. You can select this log file, and this is opening up a file browser where I can just open this file with an editor. And the interesting part is, so I will just go to the bottom of this file, yeah, and that's it exactly. So as we talked about this earlier, when MagicDraw starts, it's actually loading all the plugins that are in the plugin directory. So here is the line telling us that, okay, right, I am MagicDraw, and at that point I started loading all the plugins. And it has this huge list of plugins. And among those plugins we will find at the end of the line here we will find our plugin. So this is the log that our plugin is loaded and everything is fine. If there is some error, then you will see some kind of error log here right at that point. And then you can figure out what is exactly the problem, and then you can fix it. So this is a little help that how if you see that your plugin is not loaded, you don't see any kind of effect or anything, then this is where you should look for the answer. So let's do a quick summary what we did here. We wrote a very simple Hello World plugin. We compiled it, we installed it into the MagicDraw, we restarted the MagicDraw, and we saw that basically a hello world message is displayed. So we have some very simple example on which we later on can build. So we talked about the structure of a plugin XML file, how plugin is actually loaded technically, and we see the details of a particular plugin, how easy it is to write actually a plugin. We talked about build system, we talked about how to make a build, and we even talked about the internal details of how the various dependencies are handled by Maven. So basically that's it. This is the first lesson. So if you have any kind of questions, please feel free to contact either using Gmail or LinkedIn, or you can even read my blog, which is www.modeldriven.hu, where I blog about various topics regarding to model-driven development. Some of my articles are written in Hungarian, but you can use Google Translator to translate it, and others are written in English, so those are easier to read in this sense. So thank you very much, and see you later on the next episode. Bye bye.